on receiving the, there are 3 variations of our program today. And I want to say thank you for staying and sharing this program with us as well as dinner. I will be turning the program over to our Director of Youth, Ms. Traylon Jackson.
First is going to be our welcome from Mary Williams.
Right.
Welcome to our program as we celebrate Black history, learning of heroes past and present who made changes for you and me. Did you know Africans landed on the South American continent and influenced Indian civilization before the arrival of the white man? Did you know black men were members of Columbus' crew? Did you know Black history began with the landing of 20 Africans from a Dutch ship in Jamestown? Virginia in August 1619, more than a year before the Pilgrim Fathers set foot on Plymouth Rock. Most of the early Black Americans came in chains and died in chains. But there were some who pointed the way toward freedom. There were many who influenced the course of American history, some through inventions and discoveries, some through speaking and writing, some through music, art, education, or athletics, and some even through death. We hope our program will enlighten our youth of heroes and the heroes of the past who helped make our world what it is today, and offer inspiration to help them realize the heroes of the future in our youth today.
So first, who am I? I was born in New York in the 1700s. I worked as a shoemaker. No one can find my license to preach, but I was a preacher. I helped with ordaining Black ministers. I served as a deacon, district chairman, and supervisor. I petitioned for the right to vote. I died and I was buried in the Colored Union Cemetery. But that was not my final resting place. I was moved to Harlem. Who am I? James Barrett. That is correct. James Barrett, our first Black bishop.
I'm not giving my black back. I'm not giving my black back. I'm not giving up my dreams and my grits and putting my hands on my hips and saying, you see, I'm a very phenomenal woman. All right. I'm not going to give up Rosa Parks, Fannie Lou Hammond, Mary McLaughlin Thune, Sojourner Truth, Madam C.J. Walker, Toni Morrison, Dr. Maya Angelou, because you see, I'm a phenomenal woman, and I'm not giving I'm not giving up my crown, my waves, my braids, curls, locks, kinks, or stars. I'm not giving up sitting in Mama's kitchen, eating peach cobbler, a sweet potato pie, and hearing her ask me, how you doing, baby? I'm not giving up going to You-Buy, We Fry on Fridays, or barbecue on Saturdays, playing bid whist, spades, and slamming them dominoes. I'm not giving back Harriet Tubman's train, Soul Train, Old Train, called the Midnight Train to Georgia. Now you can meet me at the function. You can meet me at the function, at the junction. But I still diamonds of oil, silver, and gold are buried in our rich, dark land. I'm not giving back my black. I'm happy being happy. My wide hips and my wide nose and the rich, in my skin. I love putting on my hair. Oh, I'm happy being happy and being in the skin that I'm in. I won't deny or forget my ancestors who lay in the wet grave in the bottom of the sea in the middle of passage for slave trade. And I won't give up on our youth today who still need a way made. And I won't give back Miles, even though he didn't smile. Billy Eckstein, and I won't give up Marvin Gaye, Richard Pryor, Phyllis Hyman, Billie Holiday, or Billy Eckstein, Jackie Robinson, or Jackie Wilson. And I won't give up the Licorice Slide, Alan Allen, Bo Jingles, or Debbie Allen. You think I'm going to give up reading my jet, Ebony, Essence, Emerge, Black Enterprise, Heart and Soul, and Upscale magazine? You see, we are colorful people. Like Curtis Mayfield sang, we are people that are darker than blue. We are honey, cinnamon, mahogany, and chocolate. We're Red Fox, James Brown, Barry White, and Mothers of the Church dressed in white. We are color purple, Lady who sings the blues, and we are Al Green with love and happiness. Oh no, I'm not giving my black back. I'm not giving up Maxine Waters, Martin, Medgar, Malcolm, Mandela, Marley, Marcus, Muhammad Ali, the Michaels, Magic, or the Million Man March. I'm not giving my black back.
Amen. Don't give up your black. At this time, Kimani has a Who Am I? The same rules apply for a $5 gift card.
I was born in the 20s. My birth certificate had the wrong name. I was so smart that I skipped 2 grades in high school. I went to college at 15. I won a Peace Prize. One of my influences was Gandhi.
We're going to let him finish the rest of it. You are correct.
One of my influences was Gandhi. I died in the 60s.
And you were right, with Martin Luther King. Next, we're going to have a musical selection from Kiara.
nation. See, back then, we understood the value of peace and human relations. See, but like all good things, that had to come to an end. See, a group of people decided they wanted to weasel their way in. See, they began to degrade and shame us, and they began to enslave and name us. And see, but still, even then, we were able to stand proud and sing, "We shall overcome."
Come on.
Now, slowly but surely, we began to succumb, but then, like all things, that had to come to an end. And that gave birth to segregation. And see, lots of us knew that there was only one way to live, and so we grew accustomed to that life. You couldn't eat here, you couldn't learn there, because that was only for whites. See, but then, like all good, we had strong, proud. We had strong, proud people. We even had one man to stand and declare that he is king. We had one man to stand and declare that by any means. And see, that gave birth to nations and inspiration. See, then that also had to come to an end, because then generation after generation gave birth to hatred, self-hatred and degradation, and then that gave birth to spite and separation. See, back then they were enslaved with whips and chains, and now that grew into being enslaved by whips and chains. And see, nowadays, that was them days, but nowadays, we're enslaved by a whip and a nanny. But nowadays we have this movement called Black Lives Matter. We want people to see the value in our skin, yet when we walk outside, we don't see the value within. So how can we expect other people to see the value we put on if we can't see it in one another?
Around as far as they can go. I'm going to talk about a young man in his day, one of my favorite poets. His name was Paul Laurence Dunbar, and I'm sure all of you have heard of Paul. Paul was born to Matilda and Joshua Dunbar in the year of 1872. Paul was born after his parents became free men. And this was so significant because Matilda was so happy that she was going to give birth to a baby while she was free, not owned by the white man, not on the plantation. They had been free. I'm going to read just a little bit about the Dunbars. Dunbar was born on the evening of June 27, 1872. And those who were sitting out on Howard Street, that's the street where he was born in Dayton, Ohio, they paused when they heard the cry of a newborn baby. We know how it is when we hear that little cry from a newborn. It is one of the most melodious sounds that we can hear because God has allowed another creature to be born. The neighbors were sitting on the porch, as some of you know, and well, in my day, we weren't allowed to sit on the porch in the evening because it was too hot to be inside the house unless you had air conditioning. And many of us did not, and especially in Dayton, Ohio, many of them did not. So they sat out on porches, and they gathered in the neighborhoods, and they talked to each other, and they listened to each other. So when they heard the cry, they were truly amazed that this child was being born. Now when he was born, there was a question about what they should name him. The father came in and upon seeing his little brown baby, he said his name will be Paul. Then the mother said, well, I don't want just any name for my baby. He has to have a special name because when I was on the plantation, Mr. had the opportunity, the masters had the opportunity to name the babies that were born. This time he has to have a very special name. So she looked at her husband and she said, what does Paul mean? And he said, Paul is from the Apostle Paul. Then she was okay with that. So then she said it must be a little bit more, it needs a little bit more something to it. So then she added Lawrence. So his name became Paul Laurence Dunbar. Now Paul wrote many poems. Even though he was sickly as a child, and many times he could not go to school, he could not do anything but stay in bed, but his mother nursed him each time back to health. He did not live a long life, but he lived a life that meant something. He did great works and was long remembered, even unto this day. Now, I'm not going to do this by myself. I want all of you to help me. So, the people on my right, I want you to read the first line. And the people on my left, I want you to do the second line. And that is when the people on the right says, and the name of this poem that he wrote, and is very popular, is A Negro Love Song. You have it in your hand. So when they say, seen my lady home last night, what are you going to say?
Jump back, honey, jump back.
All right, we're ready to go. And this, my friend that's standing up here with me, will act out the part. All right. Are you ready? Let's go. Try it again, okay? Read it as it is on the sheet. And you will be so proud of yourself. All right, let's start over. Head. All right, ready? See my lady home last night.
Jump back, honey, jump back. Jump back, honey, jump back. See the lightning from the high. Jump back, honey, jump back. Jump back, honey, jump back. Jump back, honey, jump back. Where I reach my lady go. Jump back, honey, jump back. Jump back, honey, jump back. You got it.
Jump back.
Honey, jump back.
After a while, Brother Brown quit jumping back. He went in for them lips to get a taste. We're going to have one more and the last one of Who Am I? And it's going to be presented to you by Natalia Francis.
I was born in the 1800s. My father was Native American and my mother was white. I went to school in the USA and France. I completed trade school in 7 months. I was killed in an accident when I was only 34 years old. Who am I?
It's a man. The one with plasma. It's a Bessie Smith.
I was born in the 1800s. My father was Native American, my mother black. I went to school in the USA and France. I completed trade school in 7 months. I was killed in an accident when I was only 34 years old. Who am I?
Billie Holiday.
One of the reasons why she took trade school in France is because they didn't allow it in the U.S.
Right.
She was the first female to do this. She wanted to open. She wanted to open a school, and she was in the process of opening a school in the U.S. to teach other females to do it, but she died doing a stunt. She is a pilot.
Bessie Coleman.
I heard half of it.
Bessie Coleman. Bessie
I heard
Coleman.
all of it, but I don't know where it came from. That's correct. Bessie Coleman.
I got it.
At this time, Malik Williams will come and do a presentation about life without blacks. Following Malik, then we'll have Sister Johnson come.
A very humorous and revealing story is told about a group of white people who are fed up with African Americans. So they joined together and wished themselves away. They passed through a deep dark tunnel and emerged in sort of a twilight zone where there's an America without black people. At first, the white people breathed a sigh of relief. At last, they said, no more crime, drugs, violence, and welfare. All the blacks have gone. Then suddenly, reality set in. The new America is not America at all, only a barren land. There are very few colonies that have flourished because the nation was built on a slave-supported system. There are no cities with tall skyscrapers because Alexander Mills, a black man, invented the elevator, and without it, no one finds great difficulty reaching higher floors. There are few, if any, cars because Richard Spikes, a black man, invented the automatic gearshift. Joseph Gamble, also black, invented the supercharged system for internal combustion engines, and Garrett A. Morgan, a black man, invented the traffic signals. Furthermore, one cannot use the rapid transit system because it's procured with the electric trolley, which was invented by another black man, Albert R. Robinson. Even if there were streets on which cars and rapid transit systems could operate, they were cluttered with papers because an African American, Charles Brooks, invented the street sweeper. There were few, if any, newspapers, magazines, and books because John Love invented the pencil sharpener, William Purvis invented the fountain pen, and Lee Barrage invented the typewriting machine, and W.A. Love invented the advancing printing press. They were all, that's right, you blasted, black. Even if Americans could write their letters, articles, and books, they would not have been transported by mail because William Berry invented the postmarking and counseling machine. William Purvis invented the hand stamp, and Philip Downing invented the letter drop. The lawns were brown and wilted because Joseph Smith invented the lawn sprinkler, and John Burr the lawnmower. When they entered their home, they found them to be poorly ventilated and poorly heated. You see, Frederick Jones invented the air conditioner, and Alice Parker the heating furnace. Their homes were also dim, but of course, Lewis later invented the electric lamp. Michael Harvey invented the lantern, and Granville T. Woods invented the automatic cutoff switch. Their homes were also filthy because Thomas W. Stewart invented the mop, and Lloyd P. Reid the dustpan. Finally, they were resigned to at least have dinner amidst all of this turmoil. But here again, the food has spoiled because another black man, John Standard, invented the refrigerator. Now, isn't that something? What would this country be like without the contributions of blacks as African Americans? Martin Luther King Jr. said, by the time we leave for work, Americans have depended on the inventions from the minds of blacks. Black history includes more than just slavery. Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Marcus Garvey and W. Du Bois.
It seems to me, said Booker T, it takes a mighty lot of Greek to study chemistry in Greek. But Mr. Charlie needs a hand at holding cotton on the land. And when Miss Anne needs a cook, why have your head inside the book? I know you've all heard that before. I'm here to set the record straight. That was a conversation between two men, but it wasn't Booker T and W.E.B. Du Bois. This conversation, not so much of a conversation, but disagreement came between Booker T. Washington and William Sanders Scarborough. Never heard of him, had you? He was born in 1852. He passed away in 1926. He was a scholar, an educator, an author, and a politician. He was born in slavery. He is the first noted black scholar in the classics. He was the author of a widely used Greek textbook. Scarborough became a focus of controversy because his views were opposed by Booker T. Washington's. In an article, Scarborough criticized why an educated black man should be given a pick instead of Greek and Latin. In another article, he criticized and vented his frustration with black mentality by noting, "We have too many dudes whose ideas do not rise above the possession of a new suit, a cane, a silk hat, patent leather shoes, a cigarette, and a good time." Through articles and lectures, he continued to push his theory that blacks should gain an enlightened education, while Booker T. Washington advanced the notion that blacks should master the skill. Scarborough lost his job as professor with Wilberforce University because more skill-oriented subjects crept into the curriculum. He was reinstated 5 years later and was later named vice president. With the university in financial trouble by debts, he was named president. With the help of Andrew Carnegie, a businessman, and the African Methodist Episcopal Church, the school was kept solid. In 1920, he resigned as president of Wilberforce and went into politics. He encouraged blacks to join the Republican Party in Ohio. In 1921, he was appointed an assistant in foreign studies in the Department of Agriculture. And there he became an authority on the black farmer in the South. Now
At this time, Reverend Fomby and Reverend White are going to finish out the last two segments of this program. I thank you for participating, and I'll see you on the other side.
These are two letters that were written to the President of the United States. Mr. Barack Obama, President.
Louder.
Mr. Barack Obama, President of the United States of America, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C. Dear Mr. President, I'm writing this letter to you concerning the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which is not permanent. I would like for all people to have the right to vote, especially African Americans. We are the only ethnic group that does not have permanent voting rights in these United States of America. The 1965 Voting Rights Act never guaranteed African Americans permanent voting rights. I suggest before you leave office, pen an executive order to make the act permanent, ensuring that African Americans have the same rights as rights of African Americans should have permanent rights like all other Americans. Even you, as president, have temporary voting rights because you were born here. But others who were not born here have permanent rights once they become a citizen. Your children and my children and generations to come, let's do something to make all citizens have equal rights here in this country in which we love. I am a veteran, come from a family of veterans who fought and died that all may be treated as citizens, not foreigners, in our own land. In closing, you have been a great president. So many accomplishments to name. This would be just one more before you leave office. God bless you, Mr. President, and your family, and God bless America. Sincerely, Germany Foundry Jr.
Still I Rise. I'm really sure that most of us are familiar
about the gains and achievements that we have since slavery. We look back on all those people that were named. When we think about people like Harriet Tubman and W.E. Du Bois, when we think about Martin Luther King, when we think about Malcolm X, when we think about our own Barack Obama, the first black president of these United States, let us not look to the past, but let us look to the future. Let us know that our hopes and our dreams lies in the future. So we should get behind our young black boys and our young black girls. We should support them at every opportunity. We should be concerned about the gangbangers in our community. We should be concerned about the drive-out shootings. We should be really concerned when so many black kids are dropping out and never finish high school. We ought to be really, really concerned when we can allow someone to talk about bigotry and racism and still run for president. Yeah. We should be really concerned when the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, endorsed Donald Trump. And we sit by. We should be concerned as African Americans what legacy we will leave to our children. But just be clear, we like Maya Angelou, we will rise. We will rise because there is a Savior. We will rise because there is a God. We will rise today because we have a mighty God that sits high and looks low.